Okay, today we have a very interesting person. When I came to Sydney, for example, in 1991, and I have heard about this person who had come to Australia a lot earlier. It's a very special person, that is Mr. Haniffa. Mr. Haniffa, nice to meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So please tell me about yourself. Which part of Sri Lanka you come from?
I come from central province, Udunura,
Yes.
and also the village where I was born is called Peradeniya.
Okay.
And those days education is, not as sought after like these days.
Yes.
No, you don't have many schools or anything like that. The first Tamil school was established in Udunura in a place called Katakumra.
Right.
And that was established with the campaign and help of Sir Razik Fareel. And I went to that school first. And when I finished my year 5, I was planning to go to another school where they have classes up to year 9. From Gampala Zahira, at that time the principal was Badiuddin Mahmood. And later he became the Minister of Education. And he and several other staff members from Gampala Zahira College, one of them was, I especially like to mention, is Hanif Nadvi. He is a person who was qualified in India, and he is from Nadwatul Ulama. So he was teaching in Colombo Zahira because Colombo Zahira was closed. So he came to Gampala Zahira, and also he is a resident of Gampala. Mm-hmm. So he lived there, and he also is Mr. Badiuddin Mahmood and Hanif Nadvi and several other staff members came to our central mosque, we had, which is in called Katakumbra, that the mosque is still there, and they came and invited the people, parents, to send their children to Gampala Zahira. Mm-hmm. So I told my father that I would like to go to Gampala Zahira. So after that I went to Gampala Zahira, and at that time we had to pay school fees, and my first school fees was written, and the receipt was written by Mr. Badiuddin Mahmood.
Right.
And he wrote the receipt,
right,
and he gave me, and he was the principal, he was the clerk, he was a teacher, and he did so much of pioneering work in that school, and they didn't have enough teachers, enough people to function in the school. Mm-hmm. So he gradually built up the place, and what he did was he went to neighboring mosques and every time and asked the parents to send their children to school. And also he got the support of a famous wealthy resident in Gampala. His name was Umar Bacha. Mm-hmm. And he got his support, and they gave, I think, financial as well as moral support. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people also, other people also joined them. Mm-hmm. And the Gampala Zahira was established and built by bamboo timber and covered with coconut leaf, for the roof. It was such a thing when you have a heavy rain, they start leaking, and we used to get sometimes get wet. And anyway, I was in that school for Gampala Daira for 5 years, and the last that was at that time all the university degrees are conducted by London University and the university was in Colombo University. They called the University of Ceylon, but it is under London University. And I studied up to the SSC. When I sat for the SSC exam, we, along with me, there were 13, altogether we 13 people sat for the exam. And that was, those days they used to have to enter London University, you had to have a matriculation. So those people who do SSC at that time, it is called Senior School Certificate, and if they, after that, they had to study 2 years for matriculation, and when they pass the matriculation, they can enter the London University exam. So, but there was also a scheme where if someone sits for the SSC exam and gets through with 5 credits in selected subjects, and they pass those compulsory subjects, they are not selected compulsory subjects, they are given, without sitting for the matriculation exam, they are given exemption from London matriculation. So when I when 13 of us sat for the SSC exam, only I got through the SSC exam and with exemption from London matriculation, and 3 others got referred, and those 3 had to complete their SSC after 6 months after they sat for the referred paper that they have failed. So, and I, in that year, that was 1950, that was the last year that they had the London matriculation exemption from the SSC exam. After that, they discontinued that system. And after they discontinued, so what I did was, I tried to enter Colombo University and continue my education, further education, but I was not financially able to do that. So I started seeking jobs. And I started working. First I started, with at that time when if you have SSC with London matriculation, or if you have matriculation exam, you can easily get a job anywhere. And when I applied, as soon as after I got the results, the first thing at that time I started applying for several jobs, because I could not continue to study in the university privately. So what I did was, I had to, I started applying. The first job that I did was, I became a teacher, English assistant teacher. So that was only, in the meantime I had also applied several other jobs. And one of those jobs was, there were 3 jobs I applied in Colombo which needed matriculation qualification. And one of them was in library assistant in Colombo Public Library. The other one was clerical staff in export import company, Haley and Kenny or something like that. And then also librarian at Reserve Bank. No, not Reserve Bank, Central Bank. At the Central Bank, there was a library. They wanted an assistant, somebody with matriculation. So what I did was I accepted the job in Colombo Public Library. While I was in public library, that was 1952. After when in the legislative council they passed, they decided to have Royal Commission for establishing the university, in Peradeniya. And the chairman of that committee was Justice Akbar. Okay. So when Justice Akbar, they recommended two places, Polgolla and Peradeniya. And the government selected Peradeniya University. So they decided to make use of all the buildings occupied by the military at that time, because Peradeniya was SIAC headquarters at that time under Lord Louis Mountbatten, and he was actually living in Peradeniya Botanical Garden.
Right.
So they took over, once the war was over, they took over the Peradeniya, the whole military establishment, and they started establishing the Peradeniya University and built the main arts building. And then when I was selected in 1952, and when the Peradeniya University was opened in October 1952. Right. So when I was interviewed in Colombo University, because the University of Ceylon was in Colombo. When I interviewed in Colombo University, then I was selected for that Peradeniya, and they said you have to report to Peradeniya University for your job, and the library is going to be in Peradeniya. So I said okay, and I was there, and then I was continuing, and in the meantime, actually I want to tell something about what really we go through and how I have come across, how I have been fighting my battle, steadily and, without giving it up. Anyway, I persevered. I started privately, and I registered since I had got the matriculation. I could register with London University to do. I started studying, and anyway, it's not like attending regular classes. I was, dragging a little bit. Anyway, eventually I got through my intermediate exam.
So this is library exam? Librarian.
Not library, this is degree.
Degree.
Yeah, university degree.
Okay.
Because
Bachelor of Arts?
Yeah, Bachelor of Arts, yeah. Okay. While working, it was a little bit hard to be very, quick and to every year to sit and prepare for the exam. Yeah. So anyway, I have been dragging a little bit, but anyway, finally I sat for the intermediate exam, London intermediate exam. And when I sat for the London intermediate exam, I got through the London intermediate exam. Okay. University of Ceylon and Peradeniya. So that is the main university. Yep. So the first vice chancellor of the university was Sir Ivor Jennings. Sir Ivor Jennings, the person who wrote the Ceylon Constitution.
Right.
You know, who wrote the Ceylon Constitution was Sir Ivor Jennings. So,
right.
and he came over there and he became the Vice Chancellor. So, as he was, when he was there for a short time, then he, you know, as usual, you know, there are a lot of, then in the meantime, 1956, there was a change of government. You know, there Mr. Bandara came to power.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of nationalism and things like that. So he felt very uncomfortable. He could not wait any longer. The first Sri Lankan University Vice Chancellor was Sir Nicholas Artigala. Sir Nicholas Artigala became the Vice Chancellor of the university. He was a dean
Sri Lankan.
in Sri Lanka, first Sri Lankan Vice Chancellor.
Yeah.
He was the first Sri Lankan Vice Chancellor, and he was a dean, Faculty of Medicine.
Right.
A very well-known, tough man. And so the council allowed me to follow the lectures.
Okay.
So for 2 years I followed lectures in the university, Peradeniya University. And I sat along with other people for the degree in 1963,
right.
and 63 degree exam, and I got through the degree straight away.
Right.
The degree I got the Sri Lankan University degree,
Yeah.
and you know, it's almost a Sri Lankan Internal University degree. You know?
Yeah.
So I sat with actually it is only after the next year.
Yeah.
It is only people like my friend Amir Ali. You know, I got through in 63,
Yeah.
and 64 he got through.
Okay.
Yeah, next year. And there was a new librarian, and because I have got the degree now, thing, and there was the senior position, and there were 2 positions in Peradeniya and 1 position in Colombo, because Colombo was part of Peradeniya University at that time. So there were 3 positions, and they advertised, and I applied. I 64, in 6 months after the degree results. 1964, I was appointed assistant librarian, which is a senior position.
Okay.
And also is graded as along with the academic staff.
Okay.
So all the
salary scale,
all the salary, all the salary, and all the privileges, study leave, and all those things were provided.
Yeah.
And I was appointed as member of the senior staff,
Right.
and I got the position as assistant librarian. And when I went for the interview, I like to mention that I was interviewed because at that time the Senate Council, there is a selection committee. In the Senate there was a selection committee. The selection committee consisted of Mr. Dudley Senayaka, Sir Nicholas Artigala, the librarian, the university registrar, Dr. Vijay Rama, there was the medical faculty dean in the selection.
So Dudley Senayaka was your member?
He interviewed me, you know, interviewed me.
Right.
And then, of course, the librarian was also there. And at that time, because there was so much of nationalism at that time, and also they declared Sinhalese as the official language.
Right. What Dudley Senayaka was doing there?
I don't know, he was in the selection board.
Okay.
The council, you know, in the council. The university council.
Yes.
It is nothing to do with politics.
Yes.
It is not anything to do with politics, you know.
Okay. Right.
So he was a well-known person, opposition leader, and he was in the selection board.
Right.
So when I went for the interview, all these powerful people were there. So when I went for the interview, I can still remember, they didn't ask me any questions about the library or any library matters. They said, do you know Sinhalese? I said yes. And then the librarian gave me a book in Sinhalese, which is a Sinhalese book. Sinhalese writing, and he said, can you can you read this? I said, yes. So I read the book. Then they asked me also the meaning of that in English.
Yeah.
So I just gave the thing in English.
Right.
So when I mentioned the thing, and after that, when Dr. Sir Nicholas Artigala, the chairman of the interview board, was telling his other colleagues, I don't think if he gives that book to me to read, I don't think I will know that as much Sinhalese as he. After a couple of weeks, I got the letter of appointment,
Okay.
So it was really a big...
interesting story. So what happened since you got that appointment?
66, after 2 years, 66, 67, I went to London University. I went and did a postgraduate diploma in librarianship at the London University. So I was sent by the university. University paid for all my expenses and accommodation, and I stayed there for 1 year and did my postgraduate diploma in London University, postgraduate diploma in librarianship. So I finished that one. I came back. 1967 I came back, and in 1971 there was a Colombo Plan Fellowship to come to Australia to study about librarianship in Australia.
What was it like at home, in your community? The practices. What were the food like?
The early part, about my situation, I will tell you. We were affected by the Second World War.
Yeah.
At that time there was a lot of difficulty for the food items.
Right.
There was rationing of food items. I don't know whether you have heard of have you heard of rationing of the food item? Oh, there was rationing.
What
rationing means you can't buy, if you want to buy 10 measures of rice or 10 kilos of rice, you can't buy like that.
Right.
So you are given only 2, and he is given only 2, he is given only 2.
So they take some boxes or something.
Yeah, there are restriction.
Right.
So that is during the World War, soon after the war, as well as even during the war, you see.
Right.
So, there was so much of restriction, and people didn't have enough to eat. And paddy field, people who have had paddy field, they were really lucky.
Yeah.
And they started, making
overstocking
profit. Overstocking, at the same time making profit.
Yeah.
Prices go up with this thing. And then, there was for food items, all these, food items, the fruits like jackfruit.
Yeah.
Jackfruit.
Yeah.
Then, what is the other fruit that we have?
Manioka.
That's manioc, that one. Then, what is that? Irapilaka, the round one.
Yeah.
Those one. Then these things are very much used. People sought after, and this
because they are
yams,
home garden.
Home garden, and yams. There are different types of yams.
Yeah.
And people have coconut tree. Then we have coffee in there in our land.
Yeah.
Especially in my garden.
Yeah.
We had coffee.
Yeah.
And coffee is, you can if you can use it for yourself, and you can sell the thing. Then people used to chew arecanut. We have these arecanut trees in our garden. So many arecanut trees.
Yes.
And those arecanuts are, very much sought after, because there are a lot of Indian Tamil people. They work in the tea estates.
Okay.
They chew the arecanuts. So
okay, now let's talk about food. The kind of, you talked about the shortage of food.
Yes. And food was rationed.
Yeah.
And food was rationed, and it was really in a way it was a good system, as well as a very inconvenient arrangement for people. You can't have And then also there was, all sorts of difficulties people were going through.
And you had that rational card as well.
Yeah, yes.
And also they introduced the clothes,
Yeah.
the uniform, school uniform.
Yeah.
Rational card. Those who have the rational card only can have that uniform.
Uniform material, you can, they all sorts of, they facilitated so that, people don't exploit, and also people don't go without it, and, they try to make it as fair as possible a system. And then they started the cooperative stores.
Yes.
Cooperative stores means they provide all the provisions like rice, sugar, flour, mildew fish, which is very much in demand by our people. Mildew fish and dal, kerosene oil, things like kerosene oil, these things, bread. If you want to buy bread, you are allowed only 1 loaf or 2 loaves. Or
Sugar.
Sugar is also parupu, dal, So all these things were rationed, and we were going through this process. And also there was a lot of difficulty because of the foreign exchange difficulty. Sri Lanka was not getting enough foreign exchange by selling the products. And so if you want to import, because most of the things were imported, so to import those things you need a lot of foreign exchange, and there are a lot of restrictions.
Let's talk a bit about our social practices, say the wedding function. What was it like?
Wedding functions usually, it was depending on the area and depending on...
right. There was sahan.
That's right. There were people always, we had the sahan and they sit around and eat in the places. Usually you don't have the weddings are held in houses. Not you don't get hotels hotels or any common halls or like that. No, not that way. It was usually in houses, and also weddings are it depends on different areas, and also those one other thing that they used to have is crackers. Wedding night.
Yes.
They have crackers and then the fireworks.
Yes.
Fireworks means
fireworks as well.
Yeah, fireworks as well. They have a thing called they have these fireworks thing packed in a ring, and when they set light it, it makes into like a big tree. It goes up when the firework goes up like a tree. It is really beautiful. Everywhere, wherever people think they have a special person who prepares for that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And of course, those who don't have the money to do that, they don't do that. But more, invariably, a lot of people used to have that, and it is very
rich culture.
And also there is usually there is a registrar, he comes, he is always a Muslim person, and he has a register manager, so he comes and
that's the paperwork.
That's the paperwork, and he gets the signature of the bridegroom and the bride and all that. It is very...
So what was like the food arrangements in the wedding houses? It's like...
it is the same as,
pretty much now.
Usually cooked in the home, and it is served in, the big plate is called sahan,
What was the house decoration like?
House decoration.
Painting the house was there?
Yes, I mean house decoration. Sometimes they decorate with those crepe papers,
Yes.
that
Okay.
sort of this thing.
Yeah.
They have like that. In fact, I can remember even my wedding. There was some decoration like
Right.
that.
Right.
So this.
So when did you want to talk about it? When did you get married?
I got married in 63.
Right. And then it was a proposal?
Yes, I mean it was arranged marriage.
Arranged marriage,
Yeah. It is then your parents go and see
Yeah,
the bride,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then.
So do you have vivid memories of the one broker coming? And,
Yes.
yeah, so
the
you want to
broker.
share your experience?
Yes, I mean broker.
So where was the broker from?
Now I was in Peradeniya University
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
The broker is from a place called, I don't know, you must be knowing Murtaravi,
Yes.
Yeah, Murtaravi is a man from, Yahalatanna.
Yes.
Yahalatanna,
Yes.
And there were few other proposals
Yeah.
before
Because
that.
you are an eligible bachelor.
Yeah. So anyway, when this man came and I liked him, and he's a very, very reliable, or I don't, either reliable or, dependable.
Trustworthy, yes.
Oh, trustworthy.
Yeah.
That sort of person,
Yeah,
He is
yeah.
not the normal broker. He trying to make, cat into an elephant or something like that, that sort of story.
Don't make the right match.
Yeah.
So
he
you
was,
kind of,
a nice fellow. The thing, at that time I was in Peradeniya, I was given quarters.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in my quarters. I was living with my brother,
Yeah.
who was studying in Peradeniya University as well.
Yes.
And he came, and so we organized, and my parents went and
So
saw the bride,
Yeah.
and we agreed to have the marriage.
So you didn't go and see
No,
her?
I didn't go and see, no.
Okay. So you trusted your parents
Yes,
to
of
make,
course.
make
Then
the judgment.
they have, the only thing I know about is they sent me a photograph.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had photograph at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
there
had
was
the
photograph. Okay.
Yeah, they sent me the photograph.
Mhm.
So I got the photograph and I had a look, and
Yeah.
so it is more than anything else. Various other things,
various the
combination.
matching of the families that mattered.
That's what this thing.
Mhm.
So, to my judgment at that time, so
Yeah.
I thought it is the right this thing.
Yeah.
So I agreed, because there was a few other proposals before, but
Yeah.
I never wanted to, because I had a particular aim, because the aim was to, that I must qualify first. So
Right.
after that only I should
Think about getting
marry.
married. Yeah.
So you won't believe, I got through the degree in 1963, and I got married in 63 on the 15th of December,
Right.
and on the 22nd or 23rd of December, I had my convocation.
Right.
Peradeniya University, in the sports stadium,
Yes.
I had my convocation.
Yes.
And for the convocation, about a degree, the convocation, I took my father and mother and my wife and her father and mother.
Fantastic.
So,
Yes.
So you won't believe how happy my parents.
Yes.
They were so happy that,
Yeah.
and it was so wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
So sorry, and it was really.
Yeah. So tell me about some of your friends that you had back in Sri Lanka. Are you in touch with any of them?
Yes, I am in touch with one of my best friends. He's from my area itself, that is from Galileo,
Mm.
where I come from.
Mm.
And that is, Mr. Jainudi.
Right.
So he resigned and he went to UK, and from UK he went to Africa. From Africa he went to New Zealand. From New Zealand he came on to Australia. Now he lives in Sydney, but unfortunately he is he is several years older than me.
Oh, okay, I actually know him.
You all know him?
He especially went to university to work. I have had friends from all three communities. I had Sinhalese friends, I had Muslim friends, and I had Tamil friends.
Right.
And they were all very nice, and but most of them now I don't have,
No
they are-
contact. Right.
yeah, one of those people who sat with me, who sat for the exam 1 year after me. He was the person from Akba, he's from Mudur, he from Eastern Province,
Okay.
Akba. Then there was other person senior person that I know, he was not that close friend, but who was, the thing was ILA Ghafoor. There was a person called
D.
Ghafoor.
Ghafoor.
Huh?
D. Ghafoor. He became a Department of Education, Director of Education.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I know him very well. He passed away.
Yeah, he passed away now, no? And then one of the other close friends I must mention is Sharif.
Yes.
From Akuruna.
Akuruna, yeah.
Yeah. I
know him.
I came to know Sharif because I was working in Colombo for 1 year. When I was in public library, when I was working, my cousin was studying in the law college. My cousin from Yahalatana, you must be knowing Proctor Aziz. He was practicing in Kandy.
Right.
And Proctor Aziz used to, he was studying law in law college. So I was staying with him in the boarding house for a short time. Then the sheriff used to come to see my cousin, I call him my brother, Proctor Aziz, to this. So then I met him, and after that we became very good friends, and at that time Sharif was doing his entrance exam.
Now, let's talk a little bit about social practices and customs and so on.
We have Maulud in the mosque, and they cook food and distribute to
the people who come there.
The community. And also, then they also have Ratib. I don't know whether you have heard of that.
Yeah.
Ratib is, Zikr Majlis,
Yes.
they call Zikr,
So, tell me a bit about that. So, what was it like?
that is really a thing in my area. The Zikr Majlis is a very important thing. Qadriya and Shadliya and, Rifai, Tariq, different sects, so different sects. In our area it is Qadriya.
Okay.
And also there is a certain area, a few areas we have Rifai. So what happens is from Qadriya Tariq, they are from South India, there is from Kotar, That is a place where they are come from. There is the Qadriya Tariq Sheikhs, the leaders of the Tariq, they come. And they come and stay in the mosque sometimes, they come and stay in houses, and they, they conduct the Qadriya Ratib, that is the Dhikr Majlis. But see, in the same way, there is Rifai Tariq, That is, those people are from, I think, mostly, there is also from Malayalam. Fifaitari.
Okay.
Malayalam.
Right.
So they also come and so they also stay in the mosque and they also in houses. So
Okay.
those are the functions and people, it is really keeps people occupied and this thing, and it's really nice, I mean, it's a social gathering and something different all the time, keeps you
occupied and keeps you engaged with the other people,
and also it
keeps the relatives in touch.
And not only relatives, and you meet people and you get to know the people and familiarize with people, become friends and that sort of thing. It has a lot of advantages, a lot of good things in it.
Okay, we talked about the life in Sri Lanka and the customs and festivals and so on. Right? Let's talk about the way you came to Australia. So you talked about Colombo Plan.
Yes, 1971 I came on Colombo Plan Fellowship, and that it was just fellowship. So we are taken around university libraries and other public libraries. At that time, the idea of librarianship in Australia was entirely different from what it is now at the moment. At that time there was a lot of changes and developments taking place, and all these libraries we were taken round, except Tasmania, we were taken to all the states and we were shown places. And after 3 months, I thought I will try to find some work in one of the universities and get some leave from the university and work in the university, and of course mainly I will be able to save up some money. So I sought some jobs in the universities, and the University of Western Australia offered me a job for 6 months. So I from Sydney I moved over to, because we finished our program, 3 months fellowship program, we finished in Sydney after 3 months, within 3 months, and after 3 months I moved over to Western Australia University and I worked in Western University Library for 6 months. From there I went, that was in 71, I went there, I think back home, 71 in October or November, something like that. And then in 1972, so then at that time it was also a very difficult situation in the country, very difficult for food items. I had 2 children, and especially even to find milk food for them, it was really a problem. I used to go from town to town and city to city. So when I applied, I decided to apply for a job in any university in Australia. So I had some contact in Australia, and I applied for different universities, and one of the universities that offered me a job was Wollongong University. So I accepted the position, and I just weighed the pros and cons of it. But anyway, it was, even though it may not have been a very good move, I decided to move out, and I was selected, and the university gave me the appointment in Wollongong University. So they paid me all my travelling and removal allowance and everything. They provided. They also even provided. They picked me up at the airport when I came with the family, and they provided me accommodation for several weeks. Then after that I found my own accommodation. I started working in the university, and I retired after several years working there in Wollongong University. Now I am retired and living.
So how long did you work for? When did you retire?
I retired in 90.
Oh, in 1990.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, because the retirement age at that time was 60.
Yeah.
So because of that, I just had to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I, also...
Enjoying your retirement life.
Yeah, and I was in a different house. Now I built this present house. I moved in here and I'm living here.
Yeah. Tell me, at the time you came to Australia in 1971, what was it like? Did you see people of different cultures?
The main people who were there in Wollongong, there was not very many people. You hardly see any people on the road, not very many people. And there is an interesting thing I was tell you is that, I came on a Saturday evening.
Yeah.
I had dinner. I was picked up at the airport by the librarian.
Yeah.
And he brought us to his home and he gave us dinner.
Yeah.
And he had organized a motel for us to stay.
Mm.
And we were staying in the motel.
Yeah.
And it was then Saturday night we went to the motel. Sunday morning, my children were small, and they were feeling really homesick, and they were wondering what is happening.
Mm.
And then we were in our rooms, and I just thought I'll try to talk to somebody, because I knew that there are some Muslims in Wollongong, because I got this feedback from earlier that saying that there are some Muslims from Arab, Lebanon, people from Lebanon and Turkey and Pakistan, and there are some Muslims there who are working steel work at that time, Wollongong. And there are some others who have come, they are on different this thing. And then I thought I will just go to, there was a telephone directory in my room, a hotel room. So I took the telephone directory, I looked at the names of Muhammad, and to find that there were a few names under Muhammad.
Right.
And they were, all home residential house numbers.
Yeah.
Then I also looked at Islam,
Yeah.
So I looked at an Islam. Then I saw this Islamic Society of Illawarra.
Okay.
And this area is called Illawarra as well.
Yeah.
So then Islamic Society of Illawarra. Then I thought, my God, this is better than calling an individual. I just called, it was maybe about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, about 11 o'clock. So when I called Islamic Society of Illawarra, somebody answered. Then he said he is the treasurer of Islamic Society of Illawarra. His name was Hamdi Abidin. He is originally from Macedonia. Hamdi Abidin is his name.
Yeah.
So he said, you can call a taxi and you come and tell him to take you to this place, and he gave me the address. So I said, I can call a taxi, but I don't have the money to pay for the taxi because I got some money in the bank, and I can get the money only on Monday because Saturday I could not get the money. and I can't pay the taxi. Then he said, you don't worry, I will pay for the taxi. When you come and call me.
Yep.
Then I will come and pay the taxi man, and you can, after that we can drop you or do anything.
That was a good one.
Yeah, then when I went there, I went and just went there, then there are several people. Then when I went there, I found that, and then he straight away came and paid the taxi money. And taxi man went away, and I went inside and I was introduced. When I went there on that day, the names I could remember there was Dr. Shamshir Ali. He was a lecturer in the Wollongong University, and he also later became the treasurer of AFIC, Australian Federation Islamic Council. Dr. Shamshir Ali, he was a lecturer. Then Dr. Shabir Haider, he is from Pakistan. Ahmad Mata, I think he is Muhammad Mata. He is Muhammad Mata. Muhammad Mata is a Lebanese. Then Hamd Ismail, did I tell you? Hamd Ismail, he is a Turkish. Hamd Ismail, and then his brother Hussein Ismail, and this Hamdi Abdin, and I think there may be one or two people, I can't remember now. These people all welcomed me. And they think, and when we finished the meeting, at that time there was no mosque in Krinjila. The mosque was, there was a small building. There was a small room. In the room they were saying people were praying, but this meeting was held in a big building. That building was a social club for all the people who were working in the steelworks. So it was not a mosque. So anyway, at the meeting, after the meeting, then Dr. Haider from Pakistan and Irfan, Mr. Irfan, he was a teacher, high school teacher. So he was there. They spoke to me, and I came with Dr. Haider. Dr. Haider brought me to the motel. After he brought me to the motel, he was a bachelor at that time. He was working as a doctor in the Wollongong area, somewhere. And when he came, then after that he went home. He was the thing, and there was another Pakistani couple. So they were there close to his place where he was living. He went home. He cooked a pot of rice. And also he got that Pakistani other family. He was that family. The man was the Pakistani person. He was an engineer. He was working in steelworks. So he had told his wife to cook some meat curry. So he had cooked some meat curry. Was it meat or chicken? I don't know. I think meat. Then meat curry, and it was a meat curry. And he asked me to. And he brought and he himself had cooked some rice, and also he had cooked some dal curry, and he brought the thing to the motel. So we kept we are very particular about not eating non-halal. We don't want anything which is not halal. So we found that he brought the thing, we kept the thing, and we ate next day also. Then the news went that so-and-so has come, and all. Then Pakistani people came to know. Then I started, then they had, the Jummah prayers. I used to go for Jummah prayers. And, of course, for a short time I didn't have a car. Then later I got a car, and once I got the car, I started going for Jummah prayers. You know, you won't believe, but you know the amount of support.
Support.
Yeah, you know, because the Pakistani people usually mostly it is the Pakistani people. They were my brothers and sisters and relations and aunties and uncles and nephews and everything. They were this thing, and I also found that they were not very familiar. So many things they are not familiar with religious things. So then I found that this is time that I had to take some initiative. MashaAllah, my parents have taught me, about religious matters, and I am more confident about religious matters. Some of the things that basic things, day-to-day things, basic things I can manage, I can conduct, I can tell people, and I was able to do that. So then what they had was they used to have the Quran recital every week or every other week, or there were a few. Then there are a few other Pakistani. When we came, there were very old Pakistani families who have settled down here. They are come in the 1920s or 1910s or that sort of thing. Very early in life. So they have about two generations here, and they didn't know much about this thing. So I started. Then they used to have Quran recital. So I also this thing. When I go for Quran recital, I had to recite the dua. After the recital of the Quran, then conducting the prayers, there was nobody who could conduct the prayers. I used to conduct the prayers. So I became more or less, what is that? Yes, I mean, what unofficial person who is managing all these things. Mosque. That was the first mosque there in Wollongong. And I became the treasurer of Lower Islamic Society because that is in Krinjila Mosque. What is that? Then when I was their treasurer for 4 years. After 4 years I left. When I left, that society had over $96,000 in account.
So tell us in regards to other things. So what was the shopping centers like? Did they have shopping malls?
There are hardly any shops. Only very few shops, and shops were not very big as now.
No shopping malls.
No shopping mall. No, nothing. Then after a few years they built a Crown Central.
Yeah.
Then in Wollongong.
So you saw that in front of your eyes?
Yes, everything, my God, everything.
Yeah. In regards to university population, were there a lot of international students?
No, hardly any. But later they allowed, there was when Mahathir Mohamad came to power, first time when he came to power, he had a policy, Bhumi Putra or some policy, where he encouraged all the Malaysian students to study. So what he did was he selected all these Malaysian students, from schools to come and study here. So a lot of them, when they came here, because I used to work in the university library, and I used to meet them, and I also sometimes take them to the mosque with me in my car. To Krinjila, and they also, meet with other Muslim people, and they became very friendly, and because of that I became friendly with several Malaysian students and boys and girls. There are still some people come here. Some of those students who study at that time, now their children have come here and they have studied and they have graduated. And they have graduated and they have gone back and they are now married and they have now children, So, but still there is one, few Malaysian students, they keep in touch with us, they contact us, and they always remember, Eid days and other days, they send us cards and sometimes videos and that sort of thing, keep in touch.
Yeah. So at the time you came in the 70s, what was the process of permanent residency?
Oh, it was really good.
Right.
Yeah, the immigration department was really good. We had this immigration.
But still, it was White Australia policy, right?
No, not at that time.
Right.
They had relaxed. No, there was no White Australia policy.
Yeah.
But they were welcoming the
Foreigners.
Migrants.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think you have shared so much information with us. Thank you so much for sharing all that. But do you have any messages for the younger people?
the younger generation, now the thing is, the life is becoming really harder and harder, competition. When you are young, you have to prepare yourself in the right way, and when you get the chance, you grab it, you see. But if you are not prepared, if you don't do that, you really, missing the thing, because this is I think the concept of education, every knowledge, everything is changed so much. Now I have seen, from the 20th century to 21st century, now, even for me, there are so many things which I am not fit or suited to handle in the 21st century, So we have to be aware of that, and we had to prepare. Of course, the children, they won't understand sometimes. So the as parents, and we have to prepare them, for the future. If we don't do that, they are really, they are going to miss out,
Yeah.
And whether it is, I think it is here or even in Sri Lanka or wherever it is, we have to keep up to the, changes. If you don't keep up to the changes, it's all, you are trapped, you see.
Yeah, to me, one real example of your life is taking risk, I think you have to take risk. Of course, it's got to be calculated, like the way you migrated or decided to migrate from Sri Lanka to Australia. At the time, almost nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You see, so I think it is quite courageous decision.
Yeah.
And then you brought your children without knowing anyone here.
Yeah,
And you stayed in the motel.
Yeah.
And then you found your way.
Oh, it was really amazing, And it was always, and also I had a lot of faith in my God or Allah, the Creator.
Yeah.
Everything was, so nicely. For me, everything, now all these things, now see, I have, achieved, that much of this thing, which people with spending even with so much of money, they could not achieve. Most of these things, and I have done my degree, except my, those tuition notes which I used to get from London. Apart from that, I had not spent anything for my degree, because at that time education was free. So, it was everything, many things, I had not, it just came to me, like, trusted on me, like, See, I had all those overseas trips, everything was, it was paid by somebody else, So it was all, I think it was a blessing that God has given me, So I can't forget that, And it's a wonderful thing happened to me,
Yeah, that's a good point to finish the conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Haniffa. Very nice to talking to you.
Okay, thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Okay.